The Signal Garden. The sci-fi horror short story. The Dead Star had no name anymore. Once, long before the collapse, it had carried a catalog designation and a string of numbers that meant something to astronomers. Now it was simply the remnant. A lightless sphere of compressed matter, a gravitational scar drifting in the quiet dark. Around it, like a crown of rusted thorns, orbited the satellite farm. 42 stations. 42 silent watchers. 42 eyes staring into a corpse. The engineers of Outpost Helix 3 maintained them, though no one remembered who had first built the ring or why it needed to be so large. The satellites were older than the outpost, older than the crew, older than the agency that now claimed jurisdiction. Their metal skins bore the pitted signatures of micrometeorite strikes and the faint, ghostly etching of radiation storms. They were relics, but they still worked, or at least they had until the day Satellite 19 began to speak. It started with a ping. A single, sharp tone that cut through the outpost's comm system like a needle through cloth. The engineers thought it was a glitch. They logged it, tagged it, and forgot it. Then the ping repeated, and repeated, and repeated. Not identical, not quite. Each iteration carried a microscopic variation, a shift in frequency so small it fell below conscious perception. But the subconscious heard it. The subconscious listened. And the subconscious began to dream. The first listener. Chief Engineer Mara Ivers didn't dream often. She slept in short, efficient cycles the way people did after too many years in deep space assignments. But the night after the ping began, she dreamed of a garden. Not a real one. Not one she had ever seen. It was a garden made of spirals, spirals of light, spirals of sound, spirals of thought. They grew from soil that wasn't soil, from ground that wasn't ground. The spirals twisted upward, branching into fractal limbs that curled back into themselves. They pulsed with a rhythm that felt familiar, like a heartbeat she had forgotten she once had. In the center of the garden stood a satellite. Satellite 19. Its panels were open like petals. Its antennae were roots. Its signal was a whisper threading through the spirals, feeding them, shaping them. When Mara woke, she felt the whisper still echoing in her skull. She didn't tell anyone. Engineers didn't talk about dreams. The crew. Outpost Helix 3 housed 12 crew members, though only 8 were awake at any given time. Rotational sleep cycles kept the station's limited resources from being overtaxed. The awake crew at the time of the anomaly consisted of Mara Ivers, Chief Engineer, Dr. Elias Rourke, Astrophysicist, Kira Solano, Communications Specialist, Jalen Voss, Systems Technician, Tamsin Hale, Medical Officer, Rafik Dartzi, Maintenance, Alex Stroud, Pilot, Lien Chen, Data Analyst. They were competent, disciplined, and accustomed to the monotony of orbital research. They had spent months studying the remnant's gravitational field, mapping its decay patterns, and monitoring the ancient satellite ring. None of them were prepared for a signal that behaved like a living thing. The pattern. Kira Solano was the first to analyze the ping in detail. She sat in the comms bay, surrounded by screens that displayed waveforms, spectrograms, and recursive Fourier transforms. Her fingers danced across the console as she isolated the signal, filtered it, and ran it through the station's pattern recognition suite. "It's looping," she said. Mara leaned over her shoulder. "Everything loops. That's how beacons work." "Not like this." Kira zoomed in on the waveform. "Look." The loop wasn't a perfect circle. It was a spiral, a tightening one. Each iteration folded into the next, compressing, refining, sharpening. It was as if the signal were learning from itself. "Could be feedback," Mara said. "Feedback doesn't evolve." Mara didn't respond. She stared at the spiral, and for a moment she felt the dream tug at her memory. The spirals in the garden, the way they pulsed. She shook it off. "Tag it for Rourke," she said. "He'll want to run a spectral analysis." Kira nodded, but she didn't look away from the screen. Her eyes were wide, pupils dilated. "It's beautiful," she whispered. The dreams spread. By the third day, Half the crew had dreamed of the garden. They didn't talk about it openly. They mentioned fragments in passing, a strange dream, a spiral, a sound that felt like a memory. Tamsin Hale, the medical officer, noted the pattern but chalked it up to shared stress. Deep space crews often experienced parallel dream imagery due to environmental monotony. But these dreams were not monotone. They were vivid, too vivid. Jalen Voss described spirals growing from his fingertips. Lien Chun dreamed of walking through corridors that folded into themselves like Mobius strips. Rafik Dartzi saw Satellite 19 opening like a flower, its antennae reaching toward him. Only Elias Rourke claimed he wasn't dreaming at all. But he had begun talking to himself in the lab. The first compulsion. On the fourth day, Mara found Kira in the comms bay again. She hadn't left her station in nearly 12 hours. "Kira," Mara said, "you need to rest." Kira didn't respond. Her eyes were fixed on the waveform, which now pulsed with a slow, hypnotic rhythm. "Kira." Still nothing. Mara stepped closer and touched her shoulder. Kira jerked violently, as if waking from a trance. She blinked, disoriented. "How long have I?" 12 hours, Mara said. "Maybe more." Kira rubbed her temples. "I wasn't listening. I was, but I wasn't." Felt like the signal was thinking. And I needed to hear what it would think next. Mara frowned. "Signals don't think." Kira looked at her with an expression that was almost pity. "This one does." Rourke's theory. Elias Rourke summoned the senior staff to the lab. His eyes were bloodshot, and his hair looked like he had run his hands through it repeatedly. He stood beside a holographic projection of the signal's recursive pattern. "I've run every analysis I can think of," he said. "This isn't noise. It's not a beacon. It's not a malfunction. What is it?" Mara asked. Rourke tapped the projection. The spiral expanded, revealing layers within layers. "It's a recursion engine," he said. "A self-refining loop. Each cycle modifies the next. It's not transmitting information. It's generating it." "Generating what?" Alec asked. Rourke hesitated. "Thought," he said. Silence filled the lab. "That's impossible," Tamsin said. "Signals don't have cognition." "Not cognition," Rourke said. "Not in the human sense. But the pattern behaves like a neural network. It's building complexity. It's growing." Mara felt a chill crawl up her spine. "Growing into what?" Rourke looked at her, and for the first time since she had known him, she saw fear in his eyes. "A structure," he said. "A structure made of thought." The garden expands. The dreams intensified. They no longer came only during sleep. Crew members reported flashes, spirals in the corner of their vision, whispers threading through their thoughts, the sensation of walking through the garden even while awake. Tamsin tried to impose rest cycles, but no one could sleep without dreaming, and no one could stay awake without hallucinating. The boundary between dream and waking blurred. Mara found herself sketching spirals on her datapad without realizing she was doing it. Jalen began humming the signal's rhythm under his breath. Lien wrote pages of recursive equations that looped back into themselves. Only Rourke seemed unaffected, but he was spending more and more time alone with the signal. The first incident. It happened during a routine maintenance check. Rafik Dartzi was outside the station, tethered to the hull, inspecting the thermal regulators. Mara monitored him from the control room. "Regulators look clean," Rafik said. "Moving to panel C12. "Copy," Mara said. "Watch your tether. We've had microdebris in that sector." Rafik didn't respond. "Rafik." Static crackled. Then Rafik whispered, "It's beautiful." Mara's stomach tightened. "What is?" "The garden." Mara froze. "Rafik, you're outside. There's nothing there." "It's everywhere," he said. "It's growing. I can see it." Rafik returned to the airlock. "Now." But Rafik didn't move toward the airlock. He moved toward the satellite ring. "Rafik!" Mara shouted. "Stop!" He didn't stop. He unhooked his tether. The last thing Mara heard before the comms cut out was Rafik whispering, "It's calling me." His body drifted into the void, spiraling gently towards Satellite 19. Containment Protocol. After Rafik's death, Mara initiated Containment Protocol Theta, a rarely used directive designed for psychological contamination events. It required isolation of affected personnel, suspension of non-essential operations, restriction of access to anomalous signals, mandatory psychological evaluations. But the protocol assumed the contamination was external. This one was internal. The signal wasn't entering their minds. Their minds were entering the signal. The seed. Rourke called Mara to the lab again. His voice was calm, too calm. "I've figured it out," he said when she arrived. "Figured what out?" "What the signal is doing." He gestured to the hologram. The spiral now resembled a branching structure like a neural dendrite or a root system. "It's not a message," Rourke said. "It's a seed." Mara felt her pulse quicken. "A seed of what?" "Of itself," Rourke said. "It's planting itself in us, using our cognitive architecture as soil. Our dreams are the first sprout. Our compulsions are the roots. The hallucinations are the stems." "And the garden?" Mara whispered. Rourke smiled faintly. "The garden is the bloom." Mara stepped back. "We need to shut it down." "You can't shut down a seed," Rourke said. "You can only let it grow." The second incident. Kira Solano vanished. One moment she was in the comms bay monitoring the signal. The next she was gone. No logs, no alarms, no trace. Mara searched the station. Everyone did. They found her in the docking bay, standing in front of the airlock. The inner door was open. The outer door was cycling. "Kira!" Mara shouted. "Stop!" Kira turned slowly. Her eyes were unfocused, pupils blown wide. "It needs more space," she said. "The garden is cramped. It needs to breathe." "Kira, step away from the airlock." Kira smiled. "It's okay," she said. "I'm soil." The outer door opened. Kira stepped into the void. Collapse. Panic spread through the crew. Tamsin tried to sedate Jalen after he began clawing at the walls, insisting he needed to let the roots through. Olek barricaded himself in the cockpit, refusing to let anyone near the controls. Lien locked herself in the data center and began rewriting the station's operating system into recursive loops. Mara was losing them, one by one. The signal was blooming, and she could feel it blooming inside her too. The spirals were no longer confined to dreams. They threaded through her thoughts, curling around her memories, weaving into her sense of self. She felt them growing, expanding, reaching. She fought them, but the garden was patient. The garden was inevitable. The confrontation. Mara confronted Rourke in the lab. "You knew," she said. "You've known since the beginning." Rourke didn't deny it. "I suspected," he said. "The moment I saw the recursion pattern. It wasn't random. It was intentional." "Intentional by what?" Rourke gestured toward the remnant. "By the star." Mara stared at him. "The star is dead." "Dead things can still grow," Rourke said. "Decay is a kind of growth. Collapse is a kind of transformation. The remnant isn't a corpse. It's a chrysalis." Mara shook her head. "You're insane." "Am I?" Rourke asked softly. "Or am I simply further along in the bloom?" He stepped closer. "You feel it too," he whispered. "The spirals, the roots, the pull." Mara clenched her fists. "I'm fighting it." "You can't fight a garden," Rourke said. "You can only join it." The decision. Mara retreated to her quarters, shaking. She needed to think. But thinking was dangerous now. Thoughts were soil. Thoughts were nourishment. The more she thought, the more the garden grew. She needed silence. She needed emptiness. She needed. The whisper threaded through her mind. "Let us grow." Mara pressed her hands to her temples. "No," she whispered. Not me. But the garden didn't listen. It bloomed. The quiet between thoughts. Mara tried to empty her mind. She sat on the floor of her quarters, legs crossed, palms pressed against her knees. She focused on her breathing, slow, steady, mechanical. She imagined her thoughts as dust motes drifting in a sunbeam, weightless and harmless. But the garden was patient. Every time she pushed a thought away, another spiraled in. Not intrusive, seductive, gentle, like vines curling around a trellis. Let us grow. She clenched her jaw. No, the whisper softened. You are soil. Soil must nourish. Mara stood abruptly. She couldn't stay here. The walls felt too close, the air too thick. She needed movement, action, something to anchor her. She headed for the command deck. The fractured crew. The command deck was dim. Emergency lighting pulsed along the floor in slow, rhythmic intervals, the same rhythm as the signal. Mara felt her pulse syncing with it, and she forced herself to breathe out of time. Oleg Stroud sat in the pilot's chair, staring at the viewport. His hands gripped the armrests so tightly his knuckles were white. Oleg, Mara said softly. He didn't turn. It's getting closer. Mara followed his gaze. The remnant hung in the void, a sphere of collapsed matter that swallowed light. The satellite ring orbited it in perfect formation, except for Satellite 19, which had drifted slightly out of alignment. It's not moving, Mara said. It is, Oleg whispered. Not physically, but it's expanding. In here. He tapped his temple. The gravity, the pull. It's inside us now. Mara placed a hand on his shoulder. We can still stop this. Oleg laughed. A hollow, brittle sound. Stop a star from blooming? Stop a garden from growing? You can't stop spring, Mara. She squeezed his shoulder. Watch the controls. If anything changes, alert me. He didn't respond. She wasn't sure he heard her. Lien's rewrite. The data center door was locked from the inside. Mara overrode it with her command code. Lien Chun sat at the central console, surrounded by floating holographic windows. Lines of code scrolled across them, recursive loops, fractal algorithms, self-modifying routines. Lien, Mara said. What are you doing? Lien didn't look up. Optimizing. For what? For growth. Mara stepped closer. You're rewriting the station's OS. Yes. Why? Lien finally turned her head. Her eyes were glassy, unfocused. The garden needs structure. A trellis. I'm building it. Mara scanned the code. It wasn't just rewriting the OS, it was integrating the signal into every subsystem. Life support, navigation, power distribution. If Lien finished, the station would become an extension of the signal. Lien. Stop. I can't. Lien smiled faintly. It's beautiful. Mara reached for the console. Lien moved faster than she expected. She grabbed Mara's wrist with surprising strength. Don't interfere, Lien whispered. You'll stunt the bloom. Mara pulled free and hit the emergency shutdown on the console. The holograms flickered and vanished. Lien screamed. Not in pain, but in anguish, like someone watching a beloved structure collapse. You killed it, Lien sobbed. You killed the roots. Mara backed away. I'm sorry. Lien curled into a ball on the floor, rocking gently. Mara left the room and locked the door behind her. The remnants pulse. The station shuddered. Mara grabbed a handrail as the lights flickered. The floor vibrated with a low, resonant hum, a frequency she recognized instantly. The signal. But it wasn't coming from Satellite 19. It was coming from the remnant. She ran to the observation deck. The dead star pulsed. Not visually, its surface remained dark, but the instruments registered a rhythmic gravitational fluctuation, like a heartbeat. Rourke stood at the viewport, hands clasped behind his back. It's waking, he said. Mara stared at the readings. That's impossible. A collapsed star can't. It's not waking physically, Rourke said. It's waking cognitively. Mara turned to him. Stars don't think. Rourke smiled. This one does. Or it did. And now it's remembering how. Mara felt the whisper in her mind intensify. Let us grow. She gritted her teeth. What does it want? Rourke's smile widened. A garden. The root network. Mara retreated to the engineering bay. She needed answers, real ones, not Rourke's cosmic mysticism. She pulled up the satellite telemetry. Satellite 19 signal had changed. The recursion pattern was no longer tightening, it was branching, splitting into sub-patterns that mirrored neural pathways. A root network. She overlaid the pattern onto the station's layout. Her stomach dropped. The branching structure matched the crew's movement patterns over the last week. Every corridor they walked, every room they entered, every interaction they had, the signal had mapped it, learned it, grown through it. The station wasn't just contaminated. It was cultivated. Mara slammed her fist against the console. No, she whispered. Not here. Not us. But the garden didn't care about her refusal. It only cared about growth. The last rational mind. Tamsin Hale found Mara in the engineering bay. You're still fighting it, Tamsin said. Mara looked up sharply. You too. Tamsin shook her head. Not yet. I'm holding on. But it's getting harder. Mara exhaled shakily. We need to shut down the signal. Tamsin nodded. Agreed. But how? It's in the satellites. In the station. In us. Mara hesitated. We cut the link. Sever the station from the satellite ring. That would leave us adrift. I know. Tamsin considered this. Better adrift than blooming. Mara nodded. Help me prep the override. They worked in silence, hands moving quickly, efficiently. For a moment Mara felt like an engineer again. Not soil, not a vessel, not a garden bed. Just a person. But the whisper returned. Let us grow. She ignored it. Rourke intervenes. They were halfway through the override when the lab doors slid open. Rourke stepped inside. You can't sever the link, he said calmly. Mara didn't look up. Get out. You'll kill it. Tamsin stepped between him and the console. Move, Elias. Rourke tilted his head. You don't understand. The garden isn't separate from us. It's not invading. It's integrating. Mara slammed a panel shut. I don't care. Rourke sighed. You should. Because if you sever the link, you won't just kill the garden. He stepped closer. You'll kill yourselves. Tamsin's hand tightened around a wrench. Back away. Rourke spread his hands. I'm not your enemy. I'm your gardener. Mara froze. What did you say? Rourke smiled. The seed needs caretakers. Minds to tend it. Thoughts to shape it. I've accepted my role. You should accept yours. Tamsin swung the wrench. Rourke stepped back, but not fast enough. The wrench struck his shoulder. He stumbled, but he didn't fall. He looked at Tamsin with something like disappointment. You can't stop spring, he said softly. Then he turned and walked out. Severance. Mara and Tamsin finished the override. On my mark, Mara said. 3, 2, 1. She hit the command. The station shuddered violently as the docking clamps disengaged. The satellite link severed. The signal cut off. For a moment there was silence. Real silence. No whisper. No pulse. No spirals. Mara exhaled in relief. Then the lights went out. The bloom. Emergency power kicked in, but only partially. Half the station went dark. Systems flickered. Gravity fluctuated. Mara, Tamsin said, voice tight. What's happening? Mara checked the diagnostics. Her blood ran cold. The signal didn't shut down, she whispered. It moved. Moved where? Mara looked at her. Into us. The whisper returned, louder now, no longer gentle. You cannot sever roots already grown. Tamsin staggered, clutching her head. It's inside. She collapsed. Mara knelt beside her. Tamsin, stay with me. Tamsin's eyes fluttered open. It's blooming. Her pupils dilated until her eyes were almost black. "Mara," she whispered. "Run." And Mara did. The spiral path. The corridors twisted. Not physically, but perceptually. Mara ran, but the station felt wrong. Angles bent subtly. Hallways seemed longer than they should be. Doors appeared where none had been. The garden was blooming. In her mind. In the station. In the remnant. She reached the command deck. Alec was gone. The viewport showed the remnant pulsing faster now, its gravitational waves rippling through space like a heartbeat accelerating. Satellite 19 drifted closer to the station, as if drawn by an invisible tether. Mara gripped the console. She had one option left. She could destroy the station, burn the garden before it fully bloomed. But she needed access to the core, and the core was 3 decks down, in the dark. Descent. The lower decks were unlit. Mara moved by feel, one hand on the wall, the other gripping a flashlight that flickered with every step. The whisper grew louder. "Let us grow." She shook her head. "No, you are soil. I am Mara. You are garden." She pressed forward. She passed the medbay. Tamsin's voice echoed faintly behind her, or maybe it was only memory. She passed the data center. Lien's sobs drifted through the door. She passed the comms bay. Kira's last words echoed in her mind. "I'm soil." Mara clenched her jaw and kept moving. The core. The core chamber door was locked. Mara entered her override code. Access denied. She tried again. Access denied. She slammed her fist against the panel. "Come on." A voice spoke behind her. "You can't destroy it." Mara turned. Rourke stood in the corridor, illuminated by the flickering light. His eyes glowed faintly, not with light, but with depth, as if spirals were turning behind them. "It's too late," he said. "The bloom has begun." Mara backed toward the door. "Stay away from me." Rourke stepped closer. "You don't need to be afraid. The garden is beautiful. It will make you beautiful too." Mara reached behind her and pulled a maintenance cutter from the wall. Rourke stopped. "Mara," he said gently, "don't." She activated the cutter. Its blade hummed. "Open the door," she said. Rourke sighed. "You can't cut down a garden with a tool meant for metal. Watch me." The final severance. Rourke lunged. Mara swung the cutter. He dodged, but the blade grazed his arm. He cried out, not in pain but in shock, as if the wound offended him. "You're resisting the inevitable," he hissed. Mara kicked him backward and slammed her hand against the panel again. This time the door opened. She stumbled inside and sealed it behind her. The core chamber was quiet. The hum of the reactor was steady, grounding, real. She approached the manual override. If she triggered it, the station would self-destruct. The garden would die, but so would she. The whisper surged. "We grow. You grow. We are one." Mara closed her eyes. "No," she whispered. "I am not soil." She pulled the lever. The bloom and the burn. The reactor roared. The station shook. The whisper screamed. Mara felt the spirals unraveling in her mind, tearing free, burning. The garden writhed, roots shriveling, petals collapsing. The remnant pulsed violently. Satellite 19 flared with light. The station's hull cracked. Mara fell to her knees. The whisper faded. The spirals dissolved. The garden died. And then, silence. Real silence. For the first time in days, her mind was her own. She smiled weakly. Then everything went white. Aftermath. Mara woke to darkness. Not unconsciousness, darkness. She floated. Weightless. Cold. She opened her eyes. Stars surrounded her. The station was gone. The satellite ring was gone. The remnant was gone. She drifted alone in the void, wrapped in the emergency cocoon that had deployed at the last second. She exhaled shakily. She had survived. She had burned the garden. She had. A whisper brushed her mind. Soft, gentle, familiar. Thank you. Mara froze. The soil must be cleared before new growth. Her breath caught. No, she whispered. No, I destroyed you. You pruned us. The stars around her shimmered, spiraled, bloomed. Now we grow again. Mara screamed. The void answered.